One of the ways we in the shop determine if a vehicle that's been flooded has been flooded to the extent that it's put a bunch of fuel vapors into the crankcase, and of course that would mean gasoline in the crankcase, which we don't want gasoline mixed with our oil, is to do a fuel trim test. This truck came in as a no start. I think the owner had cranked it for a little bit and it wouldn't start. And of course I had to crank it a few times as well to run some tests, and now I've replaced the distributor and I've gotten it running. And we've already changed the spark plugs and the spark plug wires as well, just as a matter of maintenance. And I've noticed that it's running quite rich. It's getting too much fuel. So what I've done is I've taken the PCV valve out of the crankcase, out of that hole down there, and just put it in the air so it's sampling what we know is to be clean, fresh air from the atmosphere. And you can see it's running pretty smooth. Probably any shake here is more in my hand than it is the engine. And the fuel trim has stabilized at about 130 counts for both banks. So that's reasonable enough. Now watch what happens when I put this PCV valve back into the engine and it starts sampling the air from the crankcase, which in theory should be free of any fuel vapors and combustible vapors, but we'll test that. And you'll notice the fuel trim is taking a nosedive. And that's because the oxygen sensors, which are the auditors of our fuel system, are telling the computer, you are giving it too much fuel. You're giving this engine too much fuel. Of course, the computer isn't doing that. It's getting the additional fuel through the positive crankcase ventilation system by pulling in the fuel vapors that have been stored in the crankcase. So there's definitely a lot of fuel in this crankcase. I'm not going to run this engine any longer. I'm going to immediately dump the oil, change the oil filter, and let it drain for a long time to get all of those fuel vapors out of the engine. And we'll repeat this test, and I can guarantee you that the fuel trim is not going to behave like it did here. And the reason that it's gone to 89 counts and flatlined there is just because that actually is kind of the lower limit of what the adaptation is capable of. In this vehicle, it will have stored a rich fuel trim code, and it's going to turn the check engine light on soon enough, I think, to alert the driver that there's a problem. Thanks for watching.